Now that we have the first fence panel attached, we're going to begin figuring out how to mount our post that sits in between the two fence panels. Initially, we considered the idea of building a false post just by stacking some 1x6s, but yesterday when we were taking a look at the project, realized that actually we might be able to use the exact same 6x6 fence post sleeve that's used for the rest of the fence, and we'll take a look at the back side and I'll show you how I think we can do that. Now we're on the back side of the fence, and so I kind of want to walk through what our ideas are as far as how we can mount the post to the existing fence panel, mount it also to the cattle gate, and how we can kind of remove some sections of the 6x6 so that we can essentially slide it over the gate. And also one thing I like as well is that since we have this hollow chamber that we have the angle iron and the PVC pipe in, our plan is to run it completely through. So we're going to also hollow out a chamber here on the 6x6. And so on the actual gate itself for each of these tubes, we're just going to go ahead here and mark the areas of the gate. Important consideration to take into account as well is that we need to make sure that the 6x6 post is the same height from the grade as the rest of the fence panel is, so that when we open and close the gate, it doesn't end up rubbing the ground. So what we've done here is we just kind of looked around the property and found a paver and then a piece of trim that gave us the right amount of height that we needed to make sure that we'll clear when the gate opens. We're going to transfer the location of the hollow chamber that exists in the top rail over to the 6x6, and we're going to use the level to help us out with that to make sure that we're transferring it to the correct height, which luckily the level can do that for us. And so that's going to be the top of the channel that we're going to carve out, and then make sure that our level's correct. And then we're going to put in our lower line, and then we'll measure what the distance is for the top rail from the front and the back of the post. But essentially it's going to be, probably somewhere in this area. And so we'll go ahead and hollow this out for the angle iron and the PVC. We're getting set up to make the cuts into the post sleeve so that it'll be able to slide over the tubes of the cattle gate. And so these are the original markings that we have from the earlier scene. So what I'm going to do is with the Sharpie is I'm just going to cut the notch that we're going to make. And I did find that there's a conduit clamp that's in the garage that's a pretty good size. The tubes that we're going to be cutting are 1 5/8". And this turns out to be pretty much the right size if I squeeze it down a little bit. We've drawn a center line as well on the post to make sure that we don't overcut. So just to kind of show you what we have in mind with a Sharpie, I'm just pretty much gonna draw on the lines that I have existing, and the conduit clamp is gonna help me make that tube shape so to have a nice, tight, secure fit. And do another one over here. And for these cuts, we're gonna use the jigsaw as well, because the jigsaw has a really narrow blade, so it's going to allow us to make these tight turns like you see here. Then after we've cut these, then we're going to rotate it, and then we're going to scribe these marks onto this side of the post and continue making that cut, and then we're going to roll it again, and then we're going to make that same cut for the tubes on this side as well. So we're going to be cutting into 3 sides of the post. As I mentioned earlier, we're going to go ahead and use a jigsaw for these cuts, and I like the jigsaw for this because you have a narrow blade, and this is the one that we used in an earlier scene, and it did a really good job of cutting the PVC. This is a metal blade, so it has more teeth, so it gives us a finer cut. And just kind of with any of these power tools, because they can cause some damage, is try to always just look around and make sure that you're not backed up to something in case you need to get out of the way, in case you hit something. Also, I like to wear the earplugs and the dust mask, and of course glasses or sunglasses. Another thing is that whenever you cut into something, I also always like to take a look at what it is that I can't see that I'm cutting. So by taking a look inside here, because I'm not exactly sure what the construction is of this 6x6 post sleeve, just taking a look to make sure there aren't any metal bits or pieces or anything else that if I'm sawing through them, the blade could hit and buck and then come right back at me. So let's do some jigsawing. We've made our initial cuts to the fence post to accommodate for the cattle gate tubes, but we need to continue this. So we're just going to roll the sleeve one more time, and then we're going to use a square, which you have right here. And it's great for lots of different functions that you have on a job site, but one of the other really great ways to use it is use it as a scribe to continue your lines when you're working on a project. So we can just use the shoulder of the fence post sleeve and just scribe these lines further along, and then with our jigsaw we can just continue making these cuts, and we'll show you that in just a second. All right, we finished all of our cutouts for the gate tubes. And as you can see, when we bring the post sleeve up to the gate, the goal is that each of those tubes are just going to slide in between here. And these are the pieces that are removed. So let's bring this over to the gate and see how it fits. We're doing a dry fit of the fence post sleeve with the cattle gate tubes, and it looks like we've got a few areas that have a little plastic that do need removed. So I'm just going along here with my pencil and marking those areas and approximately how much I think we need to remove. And this one looks fine, a little here. This one looks like it has a little bit. And so we'll bring those back over to the table and run the jigsaw again on those. All right, let's check it out. This is our second dry fit of the sleeve over the gate tubes, and it looks like it did a really good job. It looks like it's fitting really well. It just actually kind of stays there by itself. And this is a small little sample piece of the fence panel just to check how they line up with each other, and their relationship looks nice. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to cut a chamber at the top to allow for our angle iron and the PVC to slide through to add some rigidity to that top rail. So let's go do that next. We've marked on the post sleeve the location of the hollow chamber, and as you'll notice, since we're not really too concerned about being able to cut anything into these hollow areas, we're just focusing on the square that we have right here, and that's what's been translated over to this square right here. So we're going to run a jigsaw on that as well. So there we go. So that's our plunge. Now we're beginning to cut on the other side of the fence post sleeve, and as you saw the first time that I cut it on the other side, I did use the jigsaw itself to plunge through the plastic. But if you're not comfortable with that, the perfectly suitable alternative method is just to use a standard drill with a nice big drill bit and just drill through the center. And then from there, should be able to stick your jigsaw bit right through there and start running. We finished our chamber cut for the top rail, and this is our first dry fit of that, and it looks like luckily it works really well. We checked level with it and it looks really good as well for level, but if we did find ourselves in a circumstance where maybe it was a little too high, we could simply just cut some of the PVC away with a blade, or we could even add a shim if we felt like it was too low. So now I'm just going to try to work this post sleeve over to our fence panel, and to make sure that I don't damage the sleeve itself, one thing I always like to use is a rubber mallet, and you can also use another nice piece of wood as well, or PVC, just to make sure that you're not directly smacking it. So let's give that a shot. The find is if I kind of just keep working my way up and down the fence post and kind of walk it over. It's going to take a while. We finished the installation of the 6x6 fence post sleeve, and it looks really nice. Our seams are nice and tight. I put the level on it again, and it's showing that it is right on the money. So next, we're going to bring in that second fence panel, and we're going to slide it over the angle iron and the PVC as well. We've got our second fence panel section up now. We've checked level, and it looks good there. So now we're going to go around to the back side, and we're going to attach two hooks in a similar manner that we've done for the first fence panel, and then we're going to put in the clips that attach the post to each of the rails. We've got the second fence panel in place now. We've got the bolts on. Let's take a look at the other side and see how the hooks line up. So here we are on the back side of the fence. This is our first panel section, second panel, and we just put these hooks in today. This is the post work that we did as well. So these are each of those notches that we created. It slips in really well. It's a nice tight fit. We've also got here in the top rail, we've got that angle iron and the PVC running all the way from the first fence section all the way through the post into the second fence panel, and everything's tied really well together. And tomorrow we are going to finish up the screws for the angle iron, and then we're going to put on some appointments on the outside to finish it up and make it look a little more aesthetically pleasing.